Hi friends, glad to be back today. Today I want to talk about being an empath and how if you are an empath, you're going to want to limit your exposure to sad, overwhelming, and negative news media as well as social media. And why is that? Well, the reason that is that when you are an empath, you have like a paranormal, a super ability to really apprehend the mental or emotional state of other individuals, as well as people, other people, as well as animals, plants. And so there's a tendency of being able to feel other people's pain, to connect with their pain, to connect with their sorrow, to connect with their stress. And in that sense, that's an amazing ability to have. However, with that ability comes great care to try to take care of yourself and have that self-care and be aware of what's impacting you in a negative way. As an empath, you can feel what other people are feeling. As an empath, when somebody walks into a room, it can change your entire feeling, correct? And before you realized that you were an empath, you didn't know what was going on. You were feeling a certain way, and then within minutes, you started feeling differently. And it wasn't until you started doing investigations and probably going online and taking quizzes and am I an empath and taking these type of quizzes to realize, oh my gosh, I am. This is me, and this is what I've been dealing with my whole life. And if that's the case, this video is extremely important to you because we want to be able to create the best life that we can have on this planet in this lifetime. And in order to do that, we're going to have to be able to not only conserve our energy, but be able to use our ability in a more positive way, to be able to be constructive with that and not get stuck, bogged down in things that we can't change and in things that are overwhelming to us. I've had many people reach out to me in the last few weeks talking about the various situations on the news, whether it's school shootings or what have you, and being able to process that, and how some people have said they found it hard to go to work. They found it challenging and difficult to leave the house because of the stress level, because of their fear, but because of the sadness that they feel. And in no way am I making light about any of these things that are taking place in the news. However, I am just raising a light to the fact that we need to be aware of how these types of news, how these types of stories impact someone who is an empath. So one of the things that I've realized in my own personal life, being an empath and dealing with empathic abilities my entire life, and yes, I'm probably very similar to you in the fact that there were years of my life that I couldn't understand why I felt certain ways. There was years where I didn't understand why somebody could walk into a room and I would feel a certain way based on their insecurities or their fears or their anger or whatever was being processed in their own life. And it became very interesting to me to realize how other people's emotions can impact me and other people's situations can impact me. And so I realized that I had to safeguard myself in a way, not that I created a bubble around myself or created this false reality, but I had to safeguard my way in order to be able to use my abilities in the right way, not feeling overwhelmed. And one of the biggest things that I found is that when I would sit in front of the news or I would look at certain social media feeds, it made me feel helpless. And one of the worst things that an empath can feel is helpless. To feel helpless makes us feel like we have no ability to do anything. And this impacts an empath more than anyone because we want to do things. We want to change things. We want to be here for the positive change in our world. And when we feel like things are overwhelming and we can't do anything about it, it makes us basically close down. It makes us very down. Even depressed, and it seems as though our personality changes as we start feeling that way, and we're not able to be who we really are on a day-to-day basis because we feel like such a weight is really on top of us. And that weight that's on top of us has to be lifted somehow. And so I'm not saying that we ignore everything, but we have to put things in certain places, and we have to create boundaries in our life, especially when it comes to our morning, our afternoon, and our nightly routine. And so we need to be aware of what we can consume and what we need to avoid to be able to stay strong, to have that self-care, and to be that empathic person that helps people on a day-to-day basis, doesn't close off, doesn't leave the world, and wants to be a part of things. Okay. Buddy sends his love, but he's decided that he doesn't want to sit here any longer. So let's get back to the concept of empathic. So really, many of you know exactly where you are right now. You know you're an empath. You know that you feel other people's feelings. You know that you take it personally. You know that it's hard to shake it, right? So it's really hard to shake. When you see a newscast and you see this horrific story of these people dealing with this pain and this horrible situation, you internalize it, right? And as you internalize it, it's a whole day thing. It's not just for a minute or two, oh, that's horrible. Okay, I'm going to move on with my life. That's just not the way it works for an empath, right? So it's really hard because many people are just watching the news, checking it out. They don't connect with it, right? They don't connect with it because they don't connect with other people. They don't see their connections with other people. They don't see their connections with animals. They don't see their connection with Mother Earth. They don't see their connection with the plants. They don't see their connection at all, okay? And so as an empath, we see our connection with everything. And even if it's crops, like you see like crops burning, if you see livestock that is having to be euthanized, all those things are overwhelming. Okay, it's not just, oh, that's the news. Okay, I'm going to get on my flight, or that's the news. Let me get a coffee at Starbucks. It really impacts you. And so because it impacts you at such a depth, we have to be very careful how much we take in. Because we take it in. We don't just glance at it. We take it in and then we absorb it. Okay, and that's totally different from a lot of our society. Okay, and so the ticker tape news, the CNN, the Fox, all that stuff is not going to be your friend, because what that's doing is that's back-to-backing stories of multiple levels of sadness, overwhelming, negative media back-to-back, and we know why they do it as well, right? They do it for ratings. They do it to get people's attention. Now, an empath doesn't need to be gotten attention. Like, none of us need to see those ads where these animals are living in squalor or these animals are being abused to do something. We don't need to see that. We don't want to see that. We would rather give to the charity or help out that group without ever having to see that. But you see how some people have to see it because they're so disengaged. They're so disconnected from other living things. And so I want you to think about this. When you get up in the morning, I want you to stop turning on the news. Let's just stop that. And I know that some of you have gotten into that pattern, and I get it. It's become a program in your life. You turn it on, oh my God, look at how horrible this is, oh my God. And then next thing you know, you're sitting there, things aren't getting done, you're starting to get depressed, maybe you're crying, you're feeling very upset, you don't know how to process it, right? So you're going through all of that. And so we need to change our routine. So we need to change that morning routine, and I'm going to do a specific video on a successful empathic morning routine here as well. And so we'll be able to link the two videos together at some point. But I'm going to do that. But in the meantime, for you, I want you to really wake up in the morning, and I want you not to put the TV on. Okay, let's not do the TV at all. Let's just not do TV, because TV impacts us no matter what. Because that's why they call it programming. Okay, that's why they say your local programming. I mean, programming is programming, right? I can program my brain multiple ways. But see, we have this box that has programming, and it even says at the top of it, programming. And it tells you what it is, right? So it's programming us to feel and think a certain way. Okay, so we want to eliminate that. But the sneaky thing that we need to eliminate more than just the news in the morning is the social media. I know this is a hard one, but it wasn't until Facebook and various social medias became politically aware and socially aware, as in the sense of we're going to get your attention by these social issues or these news issues. And so when that started happening, the sweet little comments on Facebook started changing, right? So you didn't get to see what your friend Allison was saying about the weekend before. You didn't get to see what John was saying about his new cat that he adopted. You know, we didn't get to see that anymore. All of a sudden we're bombarded by all of these overwhelming, sad, and negative media that is in between our friends' updates. And so what I've had to do is I've had to stop social media in the morning completely. I've had many mornings, which as an empath turns into an entire day, can turn into an entire week of feeling really negative and really sad about where our world is. And I'm tired of that because I have so much more to do in my life. I have so much things to fulfill, so many goals to attain, that if I stay in that mindset too long, I can't achieve any of that. I can't because I'm too overwhelmed with the fact that I feel helpless to so many countless issues in the world. And so I want you to think about that. Let's limit our social media. Let's stop it in the morning. Let's stop the news in the morning, okay? And then I want you to start analyzing this, because this is a really thoughtful connection, one-on-one communication with you and I right now. What can you really take? How much news media are you able to actually process? How much are you able to deal with? And I'm not saying that we need to hide out or get under a rock or act like we're in some other world. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to create an alternate reality. But I'm just saying we need to create a reality where we can thrive. And an empath is on this planet to help others. To help others be able to connect mindfully, to be able to feel others, but also to be impactful and expressive, to get people to see a different way of life. And it's hard to do that when we're in a negative stance. It's hard to do that when we're in a depressed stance because we can't get over the newscast that we saw at 8 a.m. in the morning. And then instead of sharing our connection and our mindfulness, we're sharing the sad story with everybody and kind of reliving it over and over and over again and not being able to really change it. So I want you to think about these things, and I want you to think about how much you really can endure. And then look at how much you're intaking right now. So take a step back and analyze, how much news am I watching? How much social media am I looking at that's impacting me? I had a client the other day say that they saw this disturbing TikTok video. It was extremely disturbing to them. And they saw it around, I guess it was around 11 o'clock at night. And it was disturbing, and it was about a puppy that was really sick and about some people that had this puppy that were not taking care of them, and it really hurt them, and they could not stop crying because they were so overwhelmed with the pain that this puppy was feeling, and how the puppy didn't have the ability to do anything because they couldn't do anything for themselves because unfortunately they're at the beck and call of these people. And so what I'm saying is that the last thing we want to do as an empath is to put ourselves out there and be exposed to this content and then trying to process some of these emotions that might be even overwhelming for us to process. Because remember, when you're an empath, you're not only processing your emotions and feelings, you're processing the other emotions and feelings in the room, and you're processing the emotions and feelings on the TV screen or on the TikTok or on the Facebook or on the Fox or on the CNN. And so think about that. How can one person process all that? It's not possible. It's just not possible. And it impacts our feelings, and we begin to start not seeing where this starts and this ends and we begin, right? So it starts getting really convoluted and we don't really understand what we're feeling at that moment. And so it becomes hard to ground ourselves in our own emotion. And so if you can, taking a break from some of this for even a few days might make you feel differently. You may feel lighter, less bogged down, less like held back. I mean, because I know that some of you also are going through stressful situations in your own life. Some of you are going through changes in your life, going through a divorce, going through a separation, dealing with the loss of a parent. All these things could be happening as well. And so that's another level of processing. And so sometimes we have to kind of retreat back in, check in on ourselves, eliminate outside influences that can cause us to feel ways of feeling overwhelmed or feeling like we don't have an ability to change things. That helps us to pull back from that, give us power, and then we can process these other things. The last thing that I want to say, though, in this video today is if your emotions change pretty quickly, I want you to start catching on who's entering that room or who you're around or who you're on the phone with. Because if you're having changes, like you're feeling pretty good at one moment, and then all of a sudden you start feeling angry or defensive or sad, I need you to start examining, because your emotions are probably not flip-flopping that fast. I think that you might be connecting with someone else's emotions or watching the TV and connecting with that. And I need you to be able to see, as an empath, okay, this is the way I'm feeling, but this isn't necessarily the way I'm feeling. And so that can really help us to get a gauge on being able to ground ourselves into who we are and how we're feeling in that moment, to be able to have an accurate understanding of our emotions. And that's very powerful, because what that does is we begin to see how it shifts and changes, and then we're able to see what impacted that shift and change, right? If we're just kind of going through it thinking that this is all of our emotions, that's not going to help us to be very solid, and we're going to probably feel a little out of sorts in our own emotions and hard to process that. I hope this video is connected with you, and I'd love to read some of your comments with regards to the content that I've provided here, because I feel that if you are an empath, this is something that's extremely important to understand, because as we understand ourselves more and more, we realize that being an empath isn't a burden, it's a superpower as long as we use it in that way and we're really aware and protective of that superpower. Take care, and don't forget to live your true life.